How should a person determine how much to eat? Please give me the answer, EC. Then I don't have to
the magic number, the number of calories you should eat every day, and how those calories should be divided into protein, carbohydrate, and fat grams. And we definitely have covered this, but I think we need to kind of keep reviewing it, partially because my opinion, I think, is different than some other sources out there. I know it's different than some other sources out there. The way that I recommend people figure out how many calories, how many macronutrients that they should eat is to weigh and measure every single thing they eat for a week. Everything. They're not going to try to be good. They're not going to try to change what they're eating. They're just going to weigh and measure every single thing that they eat for a week. And they can use an app like MyFitnessPal. They're going to record everything, whether or not it's the olive oil to help cook the veggies, whether or not it's a half piece of pizza from the kids' dinner that they're finishing up, every snack, every meal, everything. And so at the end of the week, what you have is, on Monday, you had this many calories and it was broken into this many macronutrients. Same thing for Tuesday, all the way for the 7 days. And you're going to see some variation there. That's natural and that's fine. Some days are going to be much higher than others. That's called life. And with this kind of total on every single day, we can then figure out an average for the week, right? We can figure out an average number of calories that you ate each day, and an average number of protein, carbohydrate, and fat grams. And that's your current daily average intake. Now, is that amount how much that you're currently eating? Is that the amount of food you should eat? Probably not. I mean, if you're going through this exercise, I'm guessing it's because you want to change your current weight, right? If you're happy where you currently are, you probably aren't interested in going through this exercise. So if you want to lose weight, you know that amount that you're currently averaging is too much, and you would need to eat less than those averages. And if you want to gain weight, you know that average is too little and you would need to eat more. And so that's how you figure out how much to be eating. You look at what you're currently eating and compare it to where you want to go.
You mentioned kind of at the start of that this isn't maybe the common or the most common approach. Can you just maybe walk us through, like, what are the other approaches? What else would somebody else advise you do, or advise somebody do, to get to this thing that we're trying to get to?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other approaches are you go to a website or you go to an app and you plug in your weight, height, age, and activity level, and you're told a number. I mean, that's even what happens with nutrition coaches. People don't love it when I tell them that we're going to do this process of a week to figure out what they need to be eating. They want me to tell them, okay, Patrick, you're supposed to be eating 2,340 calories with 150 grams of protein, this many carbs and fat, etc. There's a few reasons I like this approach, but one of the big things here, if you're not interested in doing this process of determining what your numbers are that you're currently eating, I don't think you're particularly interested in knowing how much you should eat. It's almost a quick screen of your level of interest because, as we've talked about before, these changes that happen in weight or body composition, they take time. Even if you want to lose 5 pounds, we could be looking at 2 months to do it sustainably. And so if you aren't interested in doing this process for a week, you sure aren't interested in doing it for 8 weeks, right? And so I think it's almost like a first screen of, well, are you actually in or out? I do think, though, that people think they're also wasting their time with this, because instead of me saying, okay, Patrick, hit these exact numbers, I'm saying, okay, Patrick, we're going to figure out these numbers. And so they don't have specific numbers to shoot for. And so they think that it's just not worth it. There's kind of two thoughts that are lost there. The first is the real magic of weighing and measuring your foods happens by actually doing the process, not by starting out at some perfect numbers. There's a lot of confusion when people go between websites and apps, and it's like, these numbers, this website says this and this coach says this. Why are the numbers so different? It's because they're all estimates. We need to get started somewhere, anywhere, get started, see what happens. And that's how we find perfect numbers. We don't have perfect numbers to start. We find perfect numbers by doing. And so that's the first thing, is that people want perfect numbers to start, and it's like, they don't exist. We have to get started. And we just basically look at inputs and outputs. We look at what you're eating and your body composition, and that's going to get us where we need to go over time. This does mean you could take any numbers from a website, from a coach, from me, and get started with them. And you will also go through a process of getting to the perfect number. So we could maybe not do this week of observation first. You eat a certain amount of food that the website says. If you lose weight and that's what you wanted, you know that you can stick to those numbers. If you don't lose weight and that's what you wanted, you need to change those numbers. But again, where you start doesn't matter as much as implementing it, seeing the results, and then making the changes. I do think observation of what you're currently doing is slightly better than just picking any number, although ultimately we'll get to the right outcome, is because chances are you're going to have a more realistic starting point when you look at what you're currently doing than what a website is just estimating for you, right? We figure out what you're currently eating. We compare that to your weight or body composition, then we tweak from there. When we start with the numbers off a website, we might need 2 weeks to consistently know if those numbers are changing you in any significant way. As we talked about in the water weight podcast, there's going to be there's going to be changes that we don't always see that fast right away. And those numbers off of a website might be higher or lower than your current intake. So we don't actually know where they are relative to where you want to go. So instead, we start where you are, we know where you want to go, and we make the change. It's almost like we're able to cut out a step that way. And so those are the reasons why I really like people to observe where they currently are. I think it's actually more efficient, although it certainly doesn't feel that way because you don't have an answer on day one.
Got it. Okay. So the second one that you sent over, the second issue is for people to know if what they are eating is the right amount, which is those feel like the 1 and 2 are very similar. So let's unpack maybe or pull them apart and figure out why are they the same and why are they?
Yeah, they certainly are related. If you're eating a certain number of calories or macronutrients and your weight body composition is moving in the direction that you want it to, then that's a good indication the quantity is the right amount, right? But sometimes it's asked independent of people weighing and measuring, because what I'll say things, eating the right amount of quantity is associated with better health outcomes. And so people want to know, well, am I eating the right quantity? Right. And I think a really simple check to know if you're eating the right quantity is are you maintaining a healthy weight? And we've certainly talked at length about this before, that one marker can't give us your entire health picture. It doesn't tell us everything that we need to know about you. So ideally, we're not only going to use your weight to classify your health. And so weight is a good one to consider. Of course, if you're lean and muscular, you're not going to get wrapped around the axle that your BMI is slightly high, that you can also look at your healthy body fat percentage and be comforted that you're in a healthy weight range. But then also check on these health markers that we've talked about before: fasting glucose, HbA1c, cholesterol, triglycerides. You're going to make sure that they're healthy ranges, and perhaps more important, that they actually are just staying there. So every year that you get them checked, they're not trending away from healthy, they're staying constant in healthy ranges. And that's a pretty good way to check that, what you're eating is the right amount. What's your weight? What's your body comp, especially if you have more muscle? And what do your health markers look like? And that's a good indication if you're getting the quantity right. Now, I just want to go down a slightly tangent nuance here, is because we did that whole podcast on health versus weight. And so I don't want to get too in the weeds, but one of the pushbacks that I have when I say, okay, we're going to use weight as a metric for health, is that there are some individuals out there who are what are known as metabolically healthy obese, meaning they're overweight for their frame, but their health markers are healthy. They come into the normal ranges. And I bring this up because this is where we have sort of the weight and the health that I just said to check in on might not line up. And, a couple things here. I'm really not interested. Again, I'm not interested in telling people what they should or should not do. I'm just trying to present the evidence the best that I can. You can choose what you want to do with your weight based on that. One of the issues, though, here with the metabolically healthy obese is that being metabolically healthy now doesn't mean your lifetime risk stays the same. And so I was looking at a paper that I'll put in the show notes that was looking at these metabolically healthy obese individuals, and it says that about 30 to 50% of them become metabolically unhealthy 4 to 20 years after the follow-up, right? So you could maybe have good health markers now and be overweight, and that turns into not good health markers in 5-10 years, right? So we have to be careful about looking at these single snapshots in time when we want health in the long term. And the other thing that I just like to caution people about gaining too much weight in their 20s or 30s is just those orthopedic quality of life issues, osteoarthritis, severe joint pain. We've had questions about knee replacements. These all can severely impact someone's quality of life, even if their fasting glucose is fine, right? So the point being here is if you're looking for the least risky approach to know if you're eating the right amount of food, I would look at your weight and I would look at your health markers and just maintain them in healthy ranges, not extreme athletic ranges, healthy ranges throughout life.